All right, so welcome back to the Jason Peely Project. Super excited for today's show. We have Mike C-Roc, Ciorrocco on the show. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
What's up, Jason? How you doing, man? Glad to be here, brother.
And I'm psyched to have you. This is great. I'm glad we were able to put this together. C-Roc is the CEO of People Building, Inc. He's a performance coach, author, dynamic public speaker, visionary, and thought leader. Been featured in Yahoo Finance as one of the top business leaders to follow in 2020 and is on a mission to build people. At his core, he's obsessed with success and helping others achieve greatness. Is a guy who had a fire lit in him at an early age, and that fire has led him to inspire others to see greatness inside themselves using past events to fuel their fire. So what was it? What was it at that early age that said, this is a fire that's going to light within me?
Well, I came from a broken home, like a lot of your listeners probably. And I thought it was an ordinary experience as a kid. But, I was around a lot of broken people, broken mindsets, just jealous people, and when you're doing that as a kid and you're seeing all this stuff going above you with conflict of child support, custody, step parents involved, jealousy things, just crazy stuff going on, you don't really know how to interpret it. You don't know if it's your fault. You don't know how you're involved, if you're in the middle of it. So I dealt with a lot of that as a kid. Now, I love my parents to death, by the way. I don't hold any of them, accountable to this or resentment. Matter of fact, I'm who I am because I went through these things. So before I get into this story, I just want to clarify that I appreciate my parents. I love my parents, even though I don't get to see my dad anymore. But when I was about 8 to 11, I lived with my dad, and it was a very emotional and traumatic experience psychologically. And, at a point when I got to 11 years old, I came home from being a weekend with my mom, and I was going over these hills in southeastern Pennsylvania, and my stomach used to be upset. And I used to get anxious and just not a good feeling when I was going back to my dad's house. And I didn't, my mom thought it was the hills. And I told her at some point, I said, I'm not feeling right. And she's like, because I was so scared to share. I just said, I didn't know what would happen. So I shared with her what was going on. And she's just like, that's not good. You're not supposed to go through something like that. That's not normal. Here, I thought it was. I thought it was ordinary. It's just part of the game. So she said, look, if you decide to get out of there, you want to get out of there, I'll file papers, but you have to stick to your guns. You have to believe, if you believe in it, deep down, you have to stick to it, because I can't have you flip-flopping if I go do this. And people will try to talk you out of something you believe in life. So whatever you believe in and you're firm holding true to, you need to make sure that you go for it and don't let anybody talk you out of it. So I remembered that. That stuck with me. So one day I came home from school. My dad had this legal envelope in his hand, and it was like a time bomb. At some point, I knew that was coming. So I'm like, oh boy, here we go. So he said, I think you should go to your room. So I crept back and sat there for about 5 minutes. I felt like it was 5 hours. And he came back. Now, my dad was my hero. He was a mason. He had big forearms and rough hands and hard worker. I always appreciated that about him, and I looked up to him for that. And he also had a wad of $100 bills always in his pocket with a rubber band around it. And I just remember as a kid, that was cool to me. So he said, this court paper says you want to move back with your mom. They don't have it that well there. They don't have money like that we have here. She just married a new guy. You sure you want to do that? And I remember my mom saying, stick to your guns. So I said, yeah, you know what? I do. I don't really want to discuss it anymore. And then, get into this inquisition thing. I don't even want to deal with it now. I made my decision. He said, okay. So he takes this wad of $100 bills out, crumples it up, and throws it at me and says, here, you're going to need this when you're living with your mom on the streets one day. And, if an 18-year-old punk kid was talking to his dad and being disrespectful, I could see his dad acting like that. But when I was an 11-year-old kid and just trying to get out of a bad environment, which I knew was a bad environment, he may not have agreed at the time. It's kind of tough. And, so two things went through my mind, Jason, when that happened. One, remind you, I thought that was an ordinary circumstance. Yeah. I thought everybody deals with that. So I thought, I can't be the only one going through this. This has got to be somebody else has had to been given up on by a parent. They're out there. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to show them that they can go through this right here and still excel. Yeah. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. At 11 years old, I just knew I'm going to show them. So I just thought about being a role model in everything I do, just going hard at being exceptional. It's anything I did, sports, school, work, whatever I could do just to provide an example. And number two, I'm very stubborn. Now, your qualities can be an asset and also a liability, a strength and a weakness at the same time. And so I'm very stubborn. So I thought at that moment, you know what? I ain't letting you win. Like, I'm not going to need that money, and I'm going to show you. So that fire was lit right there. And what I was able to do at that time, which I wasn't really aware of what I was doing until about 3 years ago, I really came up with the concept. I was able to turn a setback, a let down, like a negativity, into rocket fuel for my future. And that's what I teach now to people. Is I teach people to convert all setbacks, any negative people, anything that doesn't take them towards their goal, convert it into fuel, carry it in your tank, not your trunk, I say all the time, and move forward. And it's changed my life. So once something that changes my life, I need to share it with other people so they can grasp that concept.
You know what, Mike, I love that. And to learn that at such a young age, so many people in this world get stuck, right? Because what you really said there that was just so clear is that because you don't think there's another way, because you don't know the other way, right? And it's for you to have that thought, well, there has to be someone else going through this. There has to be another way, and to allow that to carry through. What can be done by people today that you coach that are realizing this moment, man, this is not where I want to be, right? And I need to really take some steps to create my new future. What is one thing that you start them with to say, okay, this is the first step along your journey to reroute yourself on your comeback story, your new plan, or just get back to who you should be?
First of all, you got to understand the concept. So when I talk about this concept, it's very important for people to really understand it and grasp it. But number one, beyond that, the first thing beyond that is to understand that you have to do this proactively. Proactively meaning that you need to understand this before you have setbacks, and then start looking for setbacks and problems and negativity. Recognize them, become aware of them, and then convert. The thing is that if you have a goal or a target or vision of somewhere you want to go, the only thing that can stop you is these things that you need to convert to rocket fuel. Everything else, if you accomplish a goal or hit a target, you have people encouraging you, you're having success, that doesn't stop you. That gets you to where you're going, and it builds you up. Yeah. The things that so that stuff out of the way. The only thing that can stop you is the setbacks, letdowns, negativity, people. So if you know that going into it, and you can say, okay, well, if this happens and it pulls me back, I know I need this, and I need that fuel. So I'm going to start looking for those things, recognizing them and converting them, and you're unstoppable at that point. You're indestructible. Now, I did a video the other day, and it was so good of a video, but I messed up because I said, do you want to be unstoppable? Do you want to be undestructible? Instead of indestructible. So I created a new word, but I didn't want to redo the video because it was so awesome, so I put it out anyway.
There you go.
But that's we all want to be unstoppable. Yep. There's nobody out there that I've ever talked to that wants to have, their goals not met. They don't want to not go to orbit. Orbit's a great place. When I talk about rocket fuel, I don't just talk about fuel, because rocket fuel gets you to orbit. We're all striving. Orbit's a place where if you had a choice of what problems you want to deal with throughout the day, because we all need problems, that gives us purpose. If you had a choice, you'd want to pick your problems. You want to be able to okay, I'll deal with this one, this one, and this one, not deal with other people's garbage and problems. And that's where we are now with gravity pulling us down. We want to get to orbit to pick our own problems, and that's where we're all aiming, and this is the concept to get you there.
It's so key, just reshaping your thoughts, right? So if you say, I'm trying to avoid all the problems, I'm trying to avoid all the heavy, or you're trying to find it and tackle it and use this fuel, right? It's like if you have a horrible day going on, but there's one good thing, instead of focusing on all the bad, you find that good and you build upon it and you use that energy with everything else you have happening in your day, and that propels you forward. And so many times we worry, and you're right, like if people talk about you, right? They're probably going to shoot you down, because maybe it's not because they want bad of you, but maybe they can't picture it in their mind yet, and they're trying to protect you, right? So they're trying to keep you in your place, because they can't realize, oh, I'm going to go out there and build this large company. Well, they've never done that, so I don't want you to get hurt, little Jason. I'm going to keep you there. I don't want I don't want anything to happen with you, and they'll put that in your mind. You'll think that's against you. But when you say, you know what, no, maybe there's another way. Maybe there's another thing that they're looking to protect me and looking to keep me there. And then when you go out and do it, then of course they jump right on board, right? They bring you that good energy.
Yeah. I mean, look, I look for people to say something about the things I'm doing. Like I'm like, all right, come on. If you don't think I can get there, just sit back and watch. Like so when you can just do that. Now, Emotions have to be removed too, because if you have emotions about somebody reacting, or if you have a letdown, emotions pull you away. So I have a very simple rule. Like, what I look at when my actions, my words, my thoughts, what time I get up in the morning, is anything that I'm doing going towards where I want to go or away from it. And it's a very easy decision to make in your life to keep things simple that way. But I will tell you, the reason that you have to be proactive with this concept is because when you're in a setback, when you're in a negative situation, or you're around negative people, the closer in proximity you are to those people, not just in space, but in time, the harder it is to have hope. The harder it is to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So that's why it's important to understand this concept early on before you run into these things, because then while you're in that proximity, you know the rule. You're like, okay, I'm good. Because how many times have you had a setback? Because I've been there, and your listeners, how many times have you had a setback, and then you're set back for a period of time because you just took a hit on the chin, man. And you're just like trying to shake it off, and you're like, man, what am I going to do? And you go through this, you go through this period of time where you're like, in denial, and so my concept, turning setbacks into rocket fuel, eliminates that time and helps you basically trampoline out of that as fast as possible. And by the way, every single setback that you go through, negativity, anything that bad that happens, if you look back in your life and do a self-assessment or an audit of it, every single one has something good tied to it that's way better than the setback.
Yeah, it's learning that lesson now. If you can use that lesson and learn to use that lesson, saves you tremendously in the future. I had some guys get into a bad real estate deal, and it cost them, but what it will save them in the future for doing that now and being able to pivot accordingly is gonna be monumental in the future of their success. Only if they go forward, right? If they made the decision, this was the one thing, it was horrible, this real estate thing, I can never do it again, I made this bad decision. But they've looked at that and said, okay, where were the problems in our business? Where were the points that we went wrong? And now they're adapting and changing that and moving it forward to carry that next level. How have you used this thought process to help people, especially now, right, who are in their businesses in times when they may be seeing the worst, right? If they're a restaurant, they probably never factored in 0% income, right? So how do you talk to the owners out there today that have seen a massive transition in their business and they feel like they're swimming out in deep water?
Every single person that's in the restaurant business that takes on my concept became aware right away when this was going on and did something about it right away. They didn't have that lay down time.
Yeah.
They didn't have that victim time. That's the thing, man. I mean, like in my business, thank God, in mortgage industry, rates dropped when COVID happened. But prior to that, when COVID happened, I got with my team and said, guys, I don't know what's going to go on here. I don't know the extent of it. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's real. There's an election year. There's all kinds of stuff going on. Listen, this is not going to be a reason we fail. We're going to make it a reason that we succeed no matter what happens. So let's get that through our mind right now. If anybody's on board, stay here. If you're not on board with what I'm telling you, you have to go, and you can go do what you want to do and make the excuses, but we're going to rock it out of this. And we did. And but I know a lot of people in the restaurant business. I live in a resort town in Ocean City, Maryland. And those that became and recognized what was going on quicker and knew that they had to take action quicker are the ones that are still around, and the ones that aren't going to make it, they have the wrong mentality.
Hey guys, again, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our show.
And if you love what you see, and I know you do, please rate, review, and subscribe. It would mean so much to us.
Yeah, it absolutely means the world to us, helps us get out to a wider audience, really just capture more people that we can help here with this show. Again, if you're getting value, check us out. Thank you again.
So grateful to you.
Yeah, action beats inaction every time. Even if it's going in the wrong direction, at least you start taking action and you quickly realize it's not the right direction. But where you never get the results is if you stand there paralyzed, right? And so I think Texas Roadhouse was one that they actually started using their parking lot as an outdoor movie theater, and then like bringing it to the car, and then they started having the people that were cutting up the steaks selling the steaks, right? And they were able to forego having to do lay off any of their employees or take on any federal funding or any assistance, and they're thriving, right? Because they said, we're this massive company. We're going to have to shut down all our restaurants. The end is near. Or, well, what else can we do? We have all these other points. We're not just a one-stop shop. What can we do to transform it, right? And you think about that with your life and your business. It's that what's next philosophy. Instead of thinking that this is it, this is all I am. And that does get ingrained to us from early years. So what is it that usually draws people to find you when maybe they've been stuck for all these years? Is there singularly a parallel moment, or traditionally it's a point like enough's enough and here we are?
Well, there's a mixture of it, but I believe it's my responsibility and my duty to get the word out of this. So I'm relentlessly, if you know anything about like my name on social media and you go look at anything everywhere, you'll see that I'm constantly pumping out content to be omnipresent. I'm mentored by Grant Cardone, who's the king of that, and I follow in his blueprint, footstep by footstep. And I give credit to him for coming into my life at the right time. But man, it's my responsibility and obligation to get that out there to people so that they can see the content that I'm talking about. Then they can recognize it for themselves whenever they're ready, whether they're at rock bottom or they're like, that's a great concept, I'd like to learn that. So I'm putting a book out too, by the way, at the end of this year. It's the first draft is done. It's almost finished. It's called Rocket Fuel. And it's going to share the stories of my life. I'm 43 years old now, but the stories of my life from when I was a kid all the way up till now, of times where I went through these things and practical uses of this concept. And then I also am going to point out the people that I have connections with, like Grant, who have also used this concept. And I'm going to point out and reference them and show people how powerful this is. Look, Jason, there's nothing really new out there. It's how you frame things. And the framing of this is really a way for a lot of people to understand. And I'm so excited to get this out to people.
Yeah, I think it's really good with what you spoke about just people not knowing that there's another way, right? Is that you do have to get your message out there, right? Because sometimes people don't know they need something until they hear it. And they say, man, that's me. That's someone talking about me. Like I'm stuck in that spot. I'm stuck right here, right? And there's a way to change. And when you can create that, it's like giving them a map. Where out there they were looking to get to Ocean City, Maryland, but they have no map. There's no no Google Maps or no phone, and they're in North Dakota and they don't know if they're going east, west, north, or south. And you show up and say, okay, there is a way. Other people have done it. Let's look at, instead of saying I'm lost, well, hey, I have this magnificent journey ahead. I'd love that. And what has been a message that you bring to your audience that they always want more of? And I know there's a lot, but is there one message out there that you always bring back because it's so parallel with everything that carries through for you and what you coach?
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing is the concept of turning setbacks into rocket fuel. But I named my podcast, What Are You Made Of? I'm a big believer in self-talk. And I think it stems from when I was a kid. My parents, my mom and dad, I'm the only kid of both of them. Then I have 7 brothers and sisters, right?
Got it.
But I felt like being in that situation, I couldn't really relate to my brothers and sisters too much because I had different parents. And I always felt like even though there was people around me, I was alone a lot. And in my head, I was alone a lot. So I would talk in those times where I didn't feel like I was getting encouragement. I created the encouragement. I felt like I took the responsibility on, if I wanted it, okay, I'm going to give it to myself. So I would talk to myself. Hey man, let's go. You're built for this. You got this. What are you made of? Nothing's going to stop you. Just kind of like pumping myself up. So when I was sharing my story, which I thought was ordinary, and I talked to a couple people and they're like, wow, that's a powerful story, man. I can relate to that. I'm like, you kidding me? This is like, there's a lot of people that come from broken homes and stuff. Come on, man. I'm like, no, man, that connects with me. And then I realized I didn't have to go to the moon and have a story about going to the moon to really connect with people. So that inspired me to start this podcast where I shared mine, but then more importantly, I brought other people on to share what they're made of. And so I think that resonates with a lot of people.
We get stuck in a point where we see something like Instagram, right? Oh, they have all this greatness and we won't give ourselves credit for what we're doing, right? So we're always talking ourselves out of where we are and not give ourselves grace for what we're doing every day, right? And build upon that and use that to our energy. And talking to yourself in that way, we have 30 to 40,000 thoughts a day. 80% of them repeat, right? And if we're choosing, is that going to be a repetitive thought that I'm constantly talking myself down, or am I using a good thought and putting that in my mind and allowing that to open me up to, just like we did with your mother when you were younger, to have the hard conversation or have the conversation out front, to just say what I need to say, because it may be tough right now, right? I'm sure no one wants to be in a place where they are in a really bad spot. But when they're able to identify it, and then they find you as an outlet that can help them create that path forward, that's a game changer. That changes lives.
Yeah. So when I was younger, I used to switch schools a lot, and I would run into I hung out with a lot of Latino kids when I was in elementary school, and I was the only white kid. And I'm Italian, but white kid, right?
Yeah.
Then I moved to my mom's house, and I was around a lot of African American kids, and I'm used to being like the only, like, so I pop in and I'm hanging out with them, and they're like, no, that don't work here. So I had to get used to being around people that, fit in, don't fit in. Like, what do I do here? Being in uncomfortable situations. So when I go into business, and have issues in business, or have difficult conversations I have to have, or a tough call I have to make, it's like nothing to me.
Yeah.
Because so what are you made of, man? What have you been through in your life? Like, what have you overcome already? And so I keep saying these things over and over again. Of course, the thoughts that I want to have are the ones that propel me.
Yeah.
And so, it comes so easy to me sometimes that I get frustrated that I just don't understand why people don't see it easier, but it's part of the process,
Well, and I know we're coming up on time, but in terms of tough decisions, everyone will push off the tough decisions, and that's why people will get stuck in that hamster wheel, right? Because every day they'll just do the easiest things first. But when you do that hard thing, honestly, it might suck. Like, let's talk, like, I don't know, losing weight or like getting in shape or on those points. It can be very tough if people want to go out there and do that work. But when you do that each day, maybe your hands get a little more callous, like your fathers were from doing, being a mason, and then start building those strong hands. Well, then, okay, that's not so bad doing a bar. Okay, then I'm not so sore the next day. So now I can push it a little bit harder and start. Now my mind and my body start to adapt. And you're not seeing results in those first couple of days, but you're getting there because you believe in yourself, and then you start seeing those results. And what usually happens is, you have that New Year's Eve effect where everybody's like, I'm gonna lose 30 pounds. They go out the next day and they try to run 7 miles. Like, it's all nothing. And they're so sore the next day. They're like, someone else is genetics. It's everything else. So it's not for me. So, Mike, I love this. This is awesome. We super enjoy this. This is such a powerful message for everyone to hear, and our audience, I know, benefited from this tremendously.
Thanks. Hey, can I add one more thing before?
1,000%.
So just this morning, I like to give practical examples. Every Wednesday morning, I wake up an hour earlier and I work out at the gym an hour earlier just to keep myself off kilter a little bit.
Yeah.
Uncomfortable, right? Every Tuesday night, though, I have a conversation in my head that goes, you don't need to get up early tomorrow. What's the point? You can go later. You don't have to do that. Call the trainer up and tell him you're not feeling right, or you're just not going to make it tomorrow. Like, I'll go every Tuesday night. It's the same conversation. Yeah. But what happens is it gets easier and easier to overcome because I keep going, nah, dude, you're not talking me out of it. So this conversation going on in my head. And then I wake up and I show up. And then by, 7 o'clock, I'm done my workout when I'm usually not done it at 8. And I'm like, yes, check this out. The rest of the day is going to be easy.
Yeah.
So I, just like anybody else, I have all this concept and I live by this code, but I still have those same things.
Yeah.
So my point is I want to share with people, I'm an ordinary dude, but I'm accomplishing big things because of this concept, and you can too. So I just want to share a practical thing just from recently that I was.
I love it. It's tough to do, and it never eliminates from our life. It's just that we find the practical use of it in our life and build upon that. Powerful.
Yep.
I love that. Where's the best place? Find your podcast. I'm sure. What are you made of? All the podcast platforms right there. Best way for them to connect with you and see more of what you have going on.
Instagram. I'm on Instagram. I answer all the DMs. I don't care who it is. If you throw me a DM, it's at Mikey C-Roc, MikeyCroc. Check it out. I put a lot of content out, man. I'm posting like crazy. I want to help people. And I look forward to engaging with you on there. And the book, Rocket Fuel, coming out end of this year. Look for it. The actual cover release is coming out very soon. And I'm going to be doing on Instagram Live a lot to try to talk to people about it and what the concept is.
Amazing. Mike, thanks so much. Super powerful. Love the message.
Appreciate you, Jason. Thanks for having me on, man.
Thank you.
Join us for your second cup of coffee every Monday through Friday at noon.
Live every day, bringing us our best content we've done so far. Super excited, super engaging, bunch of great guests. We're here to answer your questions, and we so appreciate you listening. Make sure to check this out.
Can't wait to see you.